We are live-ish. Brought to you by Killcliff. Just got back from watching Team Viking not beat the Fronings. It was disappointing, but they gave it a good run. I got to meet up with Austin and talk to him about all the fun shit that they were doing.
Did they enjoy the cold?
It was freezing.
Were they prepared?
They were not. We're also brought to you by... Can I get through the promos here today?
No. People said you need to talk more.
Yeah, people said Dan needed to talk more, and he just cranked it up. We're also brought to you by Travis Fox at Nike Weightlifting. They provide our lifting team with all the Nike Weightlifting products, primarily shoes and singlets, shirts, warm-ups, not too many undergarments, but they're good people. You can check them out at athleteperformancesolutions.com. Today, I am joined by, as always, Danger Man, special guest, per the request of the audience. Can we get a little FaceTime with Jess? Now, this is Jess Clark. He's one of our coaches here, coaches all things that are fun. His name is Jess, not Jesse. However, I didn't learn this for a solid year, to the point where I made his email jesse@liftlabco.com, which works, by the way.
It's actually kind of funny because I'm actually named after my great-grandfather, whose name was Jesse, but didn't like it, and so went by Jess. And I still have friends from home, former teammates, and they get into arguments if someone calls me a different name. It's like, guys, it's the same name.
And I'd like to point out that I also spend an equal amount of time calling him Rajesh because he's part Indian.
Yep.
And so I just felt like that should be his name. Okay, down to action here. Today we are going to talk about why... Say it again.
I was saying, moving on.
Moving forward. We're going to talk about why I love CrossFit.
You in particular.
Why Dan Brown loves CrossFit. And this is coming up because of the overwhelming response to my social media exposure.
Can we say hate?
The hate coming in for me being at the CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin, to the point where I showed up at a vendor booth. It is a very large vendor, popular in the weightlifting community. They might sell coffee and a weightlifting lifestyle. And the girl working in the booth was excited to see me and said, wait a second, what are you doing here? You hate CrossFit. And I'm with my three buddies, and they immediately just start dying of laughter because the whole 6-hour ride up there, they are busting my balls the whole time. They all belong to CrossFit Gym. And they are busting my balls the whole time saying that I don't like CrossFit because we're not a CrossFit affiliate. So today I thought I would take the liberty to discuss with my friends Jess and Danger Man why I love CrossFit. Now,
So,
because I would like to remind you all of just a little bit of the history of CrossFit. This doesn't always get talked about. Dan Brown was watching 2005, maybe 2006. 2006. When the hell did it start? 2006, 7? 8?
I think
Jess?
8 might have been the first games, and that was won by James Fitzgerald.
Okay.
because he could butterfly pull up.
Right.
He figured it out.
By the
He did
way,
figure it out.
Rajesh is a student of the CrossFit game, despite us not being a CrossFit affiliate.
It's the sport of CrossFit. Sport of fitness. let's all take a moment to acknowledge that CrossFit is a sport.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
So anyway, I actually got drawn into CrossFit in the early days for a couple of reasons. One, I was working in a Globo gym, okay? And that was not where I wanted to be. I've talked about it in previous podcasts where that was a training purgatory. I essentially was a dead man. They were just trying to figure out where to like
You just walked around all day just like...
Exactly. So I would get somebody showed me these pull-ups where, and I'm doing things with my hands for those. I'm milking a cow basically with my hands. But there's a guy showing me these pull-ups, and he threw a towel over the pull-up bar, and basically he alternated doing pull-ups with his arms going in an alternating motion. Think about doing a pull-up while milking a cow. Be a strong cow udder. But and I was like, where in the hell did you see somebody doing that? And he said, CrossFit.com. So this is early days internet.
Main site.
I looked on main site, and the thing that I liked was, one, they had really cool pictures. Okay, it would be somebody doing something outside. You know, like now everybody kind of gets the picture where somebody's over squatting a tree branch on an abandoned beach or doing a handstand hold on a mountaintop. But they were pretty creative in the early days of like sharing the message of fitness. So it definitely captured my attention. And they had a pretty extensive video library. And I will not claim to agree with everything in those videos and everything. I won't say that everything that was in that video library was the absolute best, but I don't think there's a resource out there that I would claim that. And I don't know about you guys, but this video library, for those of you that were around in the early days of CrossFit, remember it had yellow lettering for every video. And it would be like, I'm trying to think of an example. It would be like, so-and-so does, air squats. And they would like speed the person up, slow the person down, something like that. And they would talk and show like the improvement. Or it would be like somebody hitting a big lift. And jokingly, what caught my eye was somebody snatching 100 kilos was considered a big lift. And for me, I was like, I don't get it. It's 100 kilos. Like, why are these people celebrating that? But it got me engaged enough to keep watching. Was this before your time, Jess?
No, I remember the old main site archives with Matt Chan's wife guiding people through like kipping progressions and whatnot, and when they were at like Tahoe versus the ranch.
Sure.
And remember, that was all free.
100%.
Right?
I'm pretty sure
probably the biggest.
It's still free, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like probably the biggest point, especially back then, back when the internet was, maybe not as, like when it was more than just memes.
Yeah.
Right, or memes, right? you had an extensive like video library that was for free for everyone.
Yeah, just exercises everywhere. So, and the other thing that really drew me to it was at the time. I hate to ever talk about this because the first thing people want to do is either try to fight you or say some asinine thing about it. But at the time, I was pretty intensely involved in jiu-jitsu and MMA. Okay. Now, let me stop you right there. When I say intensely involved, I trained a whole hell of a lot. Never did an MMA fight. Did a pretty good amount of live kickboxing sparring, but never like a sanctioned kickboxing event. I did competitively compete in jiu-jitsu events. Okay, so now with that as a background, before people start talking shit, because that's what the internet's good for.
And a very svelte 6'3", 205.
I did jiu-jitsu at 205.
Yeah, so you would say pretty fit.
Yeah, fit guy. Yeah, and I was very interested in, this was also, to get into the history of like why I actually like this stuff. At the almost parallel to my discovery to CrossFit, Jim Jones, as in GYM, came on the scene. And these guys will bust my balls about this. I love black and white.
Well,
his whole website was in black and white.
Yes. But, Mark Twight, who's written some books, like, they're not the greatest books, but, like, it's, like the man is crazy. The man is 100%, like, legit insane.
Awesomely crazy.
And, like, had a gym that was basically a box gym and had all sorts of, like, crazy, it basically looked like a modern-day CrossFit.
Sure.
And he, like, talked about doing all these insane things as, like, an inward, like, self sort of discovery, right? You had to endure X, Y, or Z pain, and now he's got his disciples. It's very culty. It's very on that end.
For sure. But along those, so that was during my kind of time with combat sports. Although I'm still involved with jiu-jitsu and still enjoy it, still do it on the regular. But HQ had a guy named John Hackerman. I think I have that right. I'm getting old. But anyway, at the time, he was training Chuck Liddell and a whole bevy of other Sambo, MMA, Kenpo fighters. I don't remember all the intricacies of it, but MMA fighters. He was training them out in California, and his methodologies were very exploratory, intense. A lot of people running up hills with wheelbarrows, sledgehammering tires, like things that are pretty popular now. He was doing this like in California, and CrossFit kind of highlighted that in these old school videos. So I was a big fan of CrossFit HQ, CrossFit Media, and let's face it, CrossFit's a media company. If we're talking about HQ, CrossFit Media was very instrumental in like getting me to think about what's possible. And you couple that with what Mark Twight had going on and my own level understanding of physiology and things like that, and it put me in a position where I really wanted to explore, okay? And this is the first reason why I love CrossFit. There are all kinds of people that talk shit about the dumb shit that goes on in the fail videos and the things like that. But what they fail to realize is no matter what program you're doing, okay, whether it's what we do here, well, hopefully not what we do here at Lift Lab, but what we did when we were younger coaches, there is a level of exploration. Okay. Now, you could argue that there's not enough caution exercise in some of these boxes with their experimenting, because you always want to try to mitigate risk, but you can never have anything be 100% risk-free. What I think the greatest value that CrossFit brought to the health and fitness industry is it allowed people or gave people the okay to explore other things. You no longer had to sit on a weight machine. You didn't have to have just one-on-one personal training as a business option. And you could do things that we all knew were fun. We all knew weightlifting's fun.
Yeah,
Some people, not me, because I'm 260 pounds, find muscle up's fun. But it gave you that idea to experiment. And Jess, I know that when you came to work here and you had a blonde mohawk, and I told a mullet, yeah.
Mullet. One snake pit mullet.
Dan Jerem was like, yeah, we should give this kid an internship. And I was like, no, with that hair. Totally judgmental.
I mean,
I'm going to admit it.
It was basically Jess walked in a pair of skinny jeans.
Strike one.
And what I believe, or maybe they were like a jogger type of jeans.
They were pin rolled.
Right, yeah, right. So, and then
Google that.
Blonde mullet. And then, I don't know, maybe I imagine he had like a denim vest on or something.
No, I had...
I like the vest, though.
Right,
so
maybe I just put that in there just to complete but it was something similar.
Blonde mullet was strike two.
Right, and dropped off the resume. And I saw a very young me in there, and I was like, maybe there's something we can work with here.
But Jess, so talk to us a little bit, because one of the things that when we brought you in for your interview, we want to get to know people and kind of what they thought. But one of your areas that had influenced you a lot to that point, and it's probably changed a little bit now, but was OPEX, which came as a spin-off of CrossFit.
Yep.
And what was it about that kind of drew you in?
So the biggest takeaway from OPEX and then like the continuing education that I'm going through with Training Think Tank, because Max El-Haj was with OPEX at one point, was the fact that they viewed CrossFit as a sport. And as it's grown, it's definitely become an elite level sport. You have to actually, almost be a full-time athlete to be good at it, to make it to regionals, to make it to the games. And so a lot of what James Fitzgerald was talking about was what he learned in his continuing education and then applying that to CrossFit and mixed modal training and just the educational side about it, where it's like, all right, we know this energy system does this, but what happens when you pair it with this type of training and vice versa. So he was like pretty much on the forefront of exploring what CrossFit could actually do before like the NSCA got involved and other strength coaches got involved. And if you do your research, like CJ Martin, who's the head coach and owner of Invictus, he's OPEX certified. So if you trace back where all these top level coaches are educated, it stems back from OPT, which is now known as OPEC. So that was like the big thing that I was.
If I'm not confused, OPT was a physical therapist or physio out of Canada. Am I way
So
off?
James Fitzgerald is from Canada. He's now in Arizona, but OPT was Optimum Performance Training. They had a free blog called The Big Dogs, which essentially was what you now see as most websites competitive CrossFit, where they actually approached the sport of CrossFit and said, hey, on Mondays you're going to do some sort of aerobic conditioning. It might be mixed modal, it might just be steady state. On Tuesday, you're going to do some sort of weightlifting. And he was the first one that actually implemented like block periodization into what CrossFit loves to say is like constantly varied functional movement.
Sure.
Nowadays, you look at the top levels, like Rich Froning. Not many people know he has a degree in exercise science. He's CSCS, and he was a strength coach at Tennessee Tech for a little bit. But those top level athletes, they all have some sort of periodization to their program, and they're the ones that are, succeeding in the games. Now, you watch the videos of Rich Froning training at Mayhem, they still follow a weightlifting program, they still have a strength program, but then when it comes to their workouts, they kind of just say, hey, we haven't done wall balls in a while, let's do some sort of workout that has wall balls and handstand push-ups.
Sure.
So that's where they still have the variation. But, I think there's definitely multiple sides of the argument of like, how do you program for CrossFit or how do you train for it? Some people will say like the Outlaw Way is a big program that people follow. Rudy Nielsen, he's like, you look at the scoring standard for CrossFit, 60 to 70% of it is Olympic weightlifting. Get really good at Olympic weightlifting, worry about conditioning later. You look at Misfit Athletics, they're like, you're competing in the sport of CrossFit, and the only way to get better at it is to do CrossFit.
Sure.
But they still all have some sort of periodization where it's like, we're going to do this strength block and then this conditioning, and they all build their energy systems as needed.
And let's talk about, Dan and I have talked before about like the distinction between competitive fitness, i.e. the CrossFit Games, and just guided group fitness in any capacity, whether it's CrossFit or what we do here, OPEX, Invictus. What are the big differences from the program that we do here versus, or in terms of like a novice general class versus the people that want to be competitive in CrossFit? So I guess let me rephrase that. What's the difference between somebody that just wants to be really fit and then somebody that wants to compete in being really fit?
I think a lot of it is the extra accessory work that they do. So if you want to be competitive, you have to work your weaknesses, whether that's gymnastics, your engine, which I posted about it a while back, like what developing your engine looks like. When someone says like they need to work on their engine, it usually breaks down into economy versus like efficiency, capacity versus economy. So your general run-of-the-mill just wants to come in and get a good sweat. It's usually they just see this as a supplement to their weekend warrior lifestyle, where they might be in like a co-ed kickball league or soccer league. But then someone who's competitive and wants to actually go to regionals, go to the games, they might break up their day into 2 sessions where they have, energy system work in the morning, then weightlifting midday, and if they even have time for a 3rd session, which a lot of people do nowadays, they might do another conditioning piece. But they know that this is what's lacking in their arsenal and what they need to do to get better to be competitive.
Sure. Well put. I think another area that we probably should talk about a little bit. If I'm taking this back to why we love CrossFit is what you just talked about. A reason that I love CrossFit, general fitness in general, is because the idea is that you're going to take yourself from unhealthy to healthy, from unproductive to productive. Maybe you're going to be a little bit better brother, sister, wife, husband. The more fit you are in general, the greater quality of life you have. And to me, that doesn't have to come from CrossFit. It certainly can come from CrossFit. It can come from a number of things. It can come from any program, right? When you get into one of the benefits of CrossFit is when you get into it, you get exposed to everything. Whether that's good or bad, or like the people that want optimal, you get exposed. Okay, so you get in, you start doing some sort of group fitness, and you look around, and you're like, you know what, I'm really drawn to Olympic weightlifting. And then you go over to Olympic weightlifting, and for the next 3 years, you pursue being the strongest, most powerful person you can be. Inevitably, you're in a weight class category, so you're probably going to trim your body fat down or bulk yourself up. And you are healthy. You are better. You might realize that you really find out that you love run a 5K day, which seems odd to me. But maybe that's your thing. No, and you decide that running's your thing. Okay, so maybe now you're running 4 or 5 times a week. You're still doing CrossFit 2 days a week because you like the strength aspects of it or whatever. Maybe you decide that doing the CrossFit style class is too hard on your body, and you're in a place like here, and maybe you're like, I'm not ready for this, and you realize that there's other options to get you ready. So the thing that I love about it is the exposure to an array of things that have potentially life-changing consequences in a good way, and all the good that comes with that.
I think to add to that too is you asked the question, like, what are these top level competitors doing different than your general run-of-the-mill fitness enthusiast? Is they seek out like specialty coaches. So like Brian McKenzie, Chris Henshaw, they're great in the aerobic side of aerobic capacity and aerobic development of the sport. But just like you said, when it comes to someone who enjoys the weightlifting or the running, they're going to seek out those experts as well. So CrossFit now has specialty coaching certifications and courses that predominantly focus on, aerobic capacity, gymnastics, weightlifting, rowing. And there's now another market for, former athletes such as, gymnasts who compete at the collegiate level. They know how to teach they've, lived that life. And now that they are done competing, how do they give back to that community that's given so much to them? Is they now become coaches, and they teach, 35-year-olds and 60-year-olds how to do kipping pull-ups if they have as long as they meet like the required standards to do, kipping, which is, we can go down that rabbit hole later, but.
Well, I mean, it's a good opportunity, and like I held a rowing course this past Saturday with a majority of people that were either in, like, they came from a CrossFit and either coached at a CrossFit or that just like to be fit, right? So I got the opportunity to bring, what was a huge part of my life for, 6 or so years, and like something I'm really passionate about, something I still work in, to just the run-of-the-mill. I got on a rower, like, in class, and, like, kind of, said they had to do this much and blah, 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 and hit, like, 30 calories or whatever, and, like, they want to get better at it, or they want to, they want to be safer at it, or they want to use it for their purpose. But, back to, I think, Dan's point is, like, part of it is, like, when you have this open box of fitness where, like, there is no limits to what you can do, right? You can explore everything, which means you can challenge yourself with everything. So back in 2010, right, there's probably a picture or video of Dan Brown, walking around with a slosh pipe, which
I made that. Which I got off CrossFit.com.
Which I remember you made. And then I remember there was a day where I think we did like 40 or 50 like overhead squats with the slosh pipe.
That was a lot.
And
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know what a slosh pipe is, think about a 10-foot,
something like that.
I'd say like 4-inch diameter.
Because you had to hold it like with.
You couldn't close your hand around it. PVC pipe filled 3/4 of the way with water, and once that thing goes above your head, it starts moving. The water's sloshing back and forth. But again, and those are the reasons why that I really do like CrossFit. Now, the other counterpoint is you can do all of those things without being a CrossFit. Okay, what CrossFit did was they sold you or people a franchise model with a blueprint of how to basically do those things without, like, in a good way, right? So if you were just into exercise, you were into fitness, you're like, man, I like this. Other people probably like this. I'm going to just open it up, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to do the WOD, and you're going to do this. We have the instructional videos. So that's really kind of like the framework of what made it accessible. And you don't have to be a CrossFit to do all those things, right? There's nothing that says only CrossFit can do, slash pipe or the whatever the modern equivalency is. And I take this back to, we all know, we've all seen all this stuff, the internet memes and shit like that just says, it shows like boot camp from the 1940s, and it's like the original CrossFit, or the Perkis system from heavyweights, right? It's the original CrossFit. It goes back a long time, and there's a great video on YouTube. I don't remember the name of the high school. You can just Google JFK High School or JFK.
That might be the name fitness. That might be the name of the high school.
JFK Fitness High School, but it was someplace in California where back in the day. JFK put a bunch of money in this private school, and the genesis of the school was that it was based around fitness. And the guys had, I'm pretty sure it's all boys, had an hour a day of vigorous activity. Okay, and these dudes are all in like army issue shorts. Okay, they're in t-shirt or they have shoes on, no shirts, and they're basically doing gymnastics-based movements. Body weight stuff, things that you could put on a high school open field. I think they did have a cargo net. Maybe.
Essentially the obstacle course.
Yeah, exactly. Like very, very militaristic in terms of simple, cheap, fast, easy, executed with high intensity is going to make you in shape. And there's only one chubby guy in the whole video, and I got to think he was new.
Yeah.
But
private pile out there.
Yeah, and JFK has a nice little monologue about why he was doing it, and the take-home message is the more fit you are and the better in shape you are, the better an American you'll be, right? Like JFK was a thought leader. I mean, around fitness, he saw that like this is trending in the wrong way, but if you get in shape and you're healthy and you're active, you're going to be a better human. You're going to be more productive. And I love the message, the literal message in the commercials that CrossFit makes with Reebok. I mean, let's face it, those two are synonymous now. And the tagline is "Be more human," right? And I think it's great because it transcends so many things. Now, if you go back to the very beginning of CrossFit and the demigod that is Greg Glassman, right? He was working at a Globo gym. Okay, he didn't like Globo gym movements. He didn't like preacher curls. He didn't like leg extension, leg curls, and he basically stepped back and said, "How long is this going to last? How long is it going to last where people are going to pay personal training money, $80, $100, $120 an hour to sit on a leg extension? And is that the best thing for them?"
Probably not.
No. And so what he did was he started pairing his individual one-on-one personal training clients together, roughly based on ability. And it started with 4 people, 5 people. And that was 4 or 5 people for an hour. It wasn't 16. It wasn't a class of 20. It was 4 to 5. The rate was slightly less than what they would pay for a one-on-one hour of personal training. Now, that, to me, is an absolutely outstanding business model, because he realized that as the mastermind, he was the commodity, right? He was what was going to determine how much money could be made. So he essentially, if you put 4 people in an hour, quadrupled the amount of money he could make. Because at some point when you're working as a personal trainer, you can't work more hours.
You get to that limiting factor.
Yes, and I really, really, really liked that aspect of his message. However, I disappeared for a few years in the collegiate and professional strength and conditioning setting. And when I emerged from the other side, that's not what CrossFit was. We're going to have one coach and pack as many people in 1 hour as possible. And that is where you started to see the internet fail videos pop up. And that's not anything more than any business. When you grow, you hit a growth problem. And a lot of growth problems occur with maintaining the quality of product. Okay? And if you look at, and I know they'll never say it's a franchise model, but if you look at CrossFit as if it were a franchise model, okay? Starbucks, definitely a franchise model, McDonald's, all those things. They all have mechanisms in play to keep quality high or consistency of product high.
Right.
If you watch the Founder movie with, who was the lead guy?
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
In his second career.
Yeah, a revitalized Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc.
Yeah.
When they're figuring out how to make a great movie, when they're figuring out how to, this is McDonald's we're talking about, when they're figuring out how to make McDonald's, they have a lot of issues once they start growing with quality control. One place has like the equivalent of 1950s thugs outside of it with trash and shit everywhere, and they're not putting 2 pickles on the sandwich, and they're using mayo, and the ingredients are all different.
Or they're serving nachos, something.
Yeah,
something terrible.
Exactly. Now they got hot dogs on the menu. McDonald's doesn't do hot dogs. They weren't sticking to what the game plan was for the franchise. Starbucks, about a few years ago, was having real problems with consistency from location to location in terms of the quality of their coffee. And they basically said Starbucks will throw away more coffee this year than they sell because of freshness issue, right? So any business experiences growth problems, and they try to reel it in to create quality and consistency of product. CrossFit, by Glassman's admission, has really no intention of doing that, right? He's a free market type guy. He's not going to tell people you can put up a CrossFit here, you can't put one up here. There's got to be so much mileage or traffic in between them. Not going to control it, so you're never really going to have a high level of quality control. Okay, so that's like a thing to consider. But if you go back to like the early days CrossFit, and I think the CrossFit gym owners that started when it first came on the scene would probably echo this, and I think they're probably set up financially better than somebody that's opening a CrossFit box today. I don't think the same financial opportunity exists today because of these things. But that's that's a long tangent. Neither here nor there. But the point is like the model and the inspiration for allowing people to be creative and pursue like really what they want in health and fitness has been laid.
And I believe that, and we've talked about it as a staff before, but the original like science and the original like this is what fitness is, like the definition of fitness, which I believe he published obviously a long time ago. But you can pull that up on the journal or whatever, right back in the day. But he basically threw out an idea of what fitness is based on these things, right? The 10 attributes or whatever, right? Sure. And at the time when like the middle ground of fitness, let's say, right? Because you've like probably got like out of the 100% of people that do fitness, you've got like the bottom percentage, which are still going to be on the couch or like maybe walking on a treadmill at home. Then you've got this middle ground that like likes to be fit and they kind of just go along with whatever. Then you've got this top percentage of fitness that are like training for one thing, like they're a professional football player, right? They know what the demands are, they know what the time domains are, they get it, right? But this middle ground of fitness, which I think it's done a great job with, but it basically kind of defined fitness for them, and everybody just kind of took it and ran with it. And there probably could have been some like, well, these are my thoughts, blah blah blah. But then you start to develop like this is it. We're gonna follow this guy. We're gonna follow this, and then it snowballs. And next thing you know, you can't really deviate from that too much unless somebody's gonna say you're not as CrossFitty as so and so. Right. We did double frame instead of frame, so suck it.
Yeah.
Right. So, but like it definitely helped this like middle 70%, like the guys that were bros in the first place, right? Like they were on the leg extensions, they were doing their back and buys day, right? Because that's what they did. Because when they
That
got
was
out,
my favorite day.
right, because when they got out of college or when they got out of their like organized sport, there was no. It was basically the death of fitness after that. Like you went to the local gym, you made sure
There's no other
your,
options.
Right, you like wiped down your bench with the towel.
The options when I came out of college were Lifetime Fitness, Cardinal Fitness, Bally's, and LA Fitness. I think Bally's and Cardinal's only regional.
The Equinox. Somewhere.
Equinox.
Right,
Equinox
right.
in Chicago, yeah, for sure.
When you just
Equinox is still going. They're actually they actually stuck to their model of like high-end global fitness, and they have actually succeeded. And not because they just didn't deviate from what they were, and so they said, okay, well, the majority of people are going to be here in the middle. We're just going to go on the far end of cost for anyway. So there's a bunch of different business models, but in no way do I dislike CrossFit. Do I dislike fitness? Do I dislike people leading healthy lives? The thing that I dislike is bad coaching. And let me say this. I have seen this at the Power 5 conference level of strength and conditioning coaches. I've seen this at Globo gyms. I've seen this at CrossFit. I've even seen it here. They're no longer here, though, right? So I just dislike like the bad coaching of things.
But if you think about it, right, you have, let's say CrossFit got, what they had 300,000 people in the Open this past year. So you can assume they've got millions of athletes out there, right? That actually attend to CrossFit. That means you've got millions of coaches. If you just simply add 1 million coaches to the field,
right,
you're going to have X percentage, right?
Right. Some of them are going to suck.
Right. There's only
welcome to every other profession.
There's only 800 jobs in collegiate strength and conditioning, maybe.
Right.
Once you count all the assistants and volunteers, right? So if you just like tenfold, you're going to have just as many that are making the same mistakes.
Yeah. What if we just open the floodgates there?
Right. So it's a problem with just the industry growing. But what it has done is it's really opened the barrier to entry to somebody that maybe is a really good coach.
Yeah. That didn't fit.
That either didn't fit in the college model.
Look at Jess. This dude's unhireable. We gave him a chance.
Right. Like again, I saw me as a young man,
I don't even want to talk.
Early sort of Justin
I don't even want to talk
haircut.
about my early job recommendations for you.
Orange Chuck Taylors, jeans, t-shirt.
Insane.
Walking in, sealing the deal.
All right, I want to talk about one last thing. We're wrapping up here. I told Brian we'd be under 45 minutes today. He said, if you're not, I'll kill you. I want to talk about something, and I really I'm going to say it, and you're going to be like, he's going creepy with it, and I'm not. Okay, so.
It's going to be creepy.
Hold on.
I'm holding on to what?
Jess.
Okay.
The last point I would like to say, the reason I like CrossFit, or what I really appreciate CrossFit, is the bodies.
Yep.
Okay. Now let's just get that out of there and let your minds wander. And here's where I'm going with this. Go back to my bio on liftlabco.com. You'll see that there's an unfinished PhD on my resume, and it definitely was centered around history and philosophy of sport. I spent the early part of my research on the Olympic Games. Okay, and one thing that gets lost in the Instagram world is the sport and the performance aspects of it, and the entertainment aspects of it. There's also an artistic aspect of it. So in the early days of the Olympics, essentially the ancient games, whether it was the norm for the games or culture, they would basically be naked, and this includes dudes. And I'm talking thang out and wrestling. And there's a whole other conversation for you. But the whole point is that the process to becoming an elite athlete was not only a physical journey, but it was also an artistic journey. And your body was a reflection of that. And I know that when you go to the CrossFit Games or maybe even to your local Globo gym, there's a trend where the girls and the guys are wearing less and less clothing and are now comfortable expressing what they've created, right? So like your body's a sculpture, you're sculpting it over time, you want to show it off. And now there's a comfort level of that, okay? Now, of course, there's the negative debate of it. This girl's just showing her ass on Instagram to get likers and followers, right? There's the hate side of it. But there's also a side of it that allows people to feel good about themselves, empowered, and general appreciation that can be non-sexual for somebody who's developed their body to that level. This is no different than the bodybuilding dudes and the bikini figure girls that go on stage in their underwear and do this exact same thing. There's an artistic expression of the body that they developed. ESPN, the magazine, has come out with the bodies issue, where they display all kinds of bodies, including like, you know, like I don't know, sumo wrestlers, whatever. But, you know, and a lot of them are inherently real fit people. But I think one thing that's been cool for me as a historian is just to see how that artistic and beauty piece has come back into health and fitness as another benefit and plus. Then what you put on social media is your comfort level, right? Like, I'm not comfortable putting banana hammock mankini pictures of myself up on the internet. That ain't where my comfort level is, okay? And I can hear Pat right now. He's like, oh, you know, all the shit he's going to be talking. But anyway, I think that that's like a byproduct of CrossFit that's good. I think it often only gets talked about in a negative light, right? And to me, that's a little disheartening because it's not something new. It's been going on since the dawn of man, right?
It's right, and I like the fact that it's, and like I've said this before in the past, but in not necessarily with the CrossFit, but when you train for your body to complete a task, right, it is going to shape itself in order to complete that task. So when I was rowing, and when, you know, like the whole team was rowing, you saw over the course of years, right, your body developed to meet the task of, you know, making this boat go down the river and at a really fast speed. And next thing you knew, right, you had all these physical results that you ever wanted, right? You weren't asking, how do I work these? How do I get some of these calves, right? How do I get these little side muscles over here? You know, which machine do I sit on to really pump those, right? You just focused on the task. So when the task is being a more functional human, being able to, you know, carry the load longer or faster or lift more, right? Get another rep or get another 50 reps. When you work on completing these tasks, you have a result that is a physical result and that you're proud of, and your body's going to shape itself to meet those demands. It's just like we see all our weightlifters. They've gotten developed, you know, legs, hips, torsos over the course of their year to 2 years or 3 years that they've been here.
Absolutely. Somebody made that comment. There was a new member here. It was a girl talking about girls, so I don't feel bad. Like, it was like the boys over in the corner, but the girls were talking about the lower halves of the females of Lift Lab, and they tend to be, you know, pretty stacked up with some muscles. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, you're pulling it off the ground, you're squatting under it, like, that's going to happen. You know, that's going to be a direct result of the task that you're imposing, right?
And you're going to take it overhead, so your upper body's got to develop as well.
Exactly. You have to get some back muscles. Like, it's going to happen. And there's something, and I haven't done it in a long time. I have not pushed my body to the physical limit since competitive jiu-jitsu.
I'm gonna say no.
I have not. Absolutely not.
I'm gonna say it was somewhere, because we're coming up on year 3, and I've been reminiscing from time to time.
Yeah.
It was sometime in the fall of 2014 when you rode a 500 meters.
Okay, all right. That was the limit of my.
We got pretty close with the immersion group.
Yeah, it's not. But there's something to be said about going to your physical limits. Ooh, I'm gonna give one more plug here at CrossFit Home. But there's something to be said about going to your physical limits and taking your body to the physical limits in understanding, like the process that occurs inside when you do that. So jiu-jitsu for sure. I did as a part of a competitive wager. Sprint 100 or 500 meters on the rower, and I did it in
123 or 4.
Okay, 123 or 124, which was fast for me. So that took less than a minute and a half. I spent the next 45 minutes laying in a parking lot in downtown Indianapolis, puking, and then
we like roll you on your side.
Yeah,
so you didn't choke on
oh, dude, it was like it was. I was like, it was bad. So, and this will be the other thing. I'll hop in here to the defense of CrossFit real quick. Not that they need me to defend them, but just to clear the air. I hope this illustrates the point that I do not hate CrossFit whatsoever. I do not dislike CrossFit. I enjoy certain aspects of watching CrossFit. On our trip that just happened, I was the one that wanted to get there early for the O course. I was the one that wanted to go early for the farmers medley. We all wanted to, but I specifically wanted to see heavy snatch, heavy clean and jerk. Okay, so there's a lot of things I like about it. They made the mascot the Pukey guy, okay, which I'm going to tell you right now is a horrible mascot. It's terrible.
It's pretty rough.
Now, if you just took out the poor design and just the fact that it's somebody throwing up, that got a lot of heat. Like, why would you ever want to train till you throw up? And I do think that every human should train to the point of vomit, whether it's intentional or accidental. And I will say this: most times it's accidental, because it's a very sadistic person that would be like, "I'm going to train till I throw up." It's usually when they experience something that's so hard and comes on them so fast that they get sick.
You usually can't control it.
You can't. But the value of that is you learn a limitation. And when you reflect on that limitation, you realize how many layers of discomfort you pushed through. Now, let's say there's 10 layers of discomfort. The 10th one's the one you throw up on. You need to then, on your intense workout days, only push to the 8th and 9th layer, right? But you have to have a reference point of suckiness to really know how hard you're going to push yourself. Jess, do you agree or disagree?
I agree because...
You want to puke today?
No. But I agree because, again, I talked a little bit about energy system training and knowing what your limiters are and how to program for them. And I definitely think if you go to a coach that understands a little bit of exercise physiology, block periodization and whatnot, they're going to get you to be the best human being possible and get you the results that you want, because they understand that all those systems play a part, that you shouldn't train to the point of puking every single day. Like, it's not healthy. But at the same time, like, there are going to be workouts that you have a limiter that may make you vomit, or that is going to slow your performance down, and then they're going to attack that.
Sure. To give you my very first experience with vomiting from training. Okay, I'd thrown up many times in the car, and when I had the flu, and I got a little too hot. When I drank milk, when I was too hot. But I was such a terrible choice. Thirst quencher, temporarily. But when I would have been around 8th grade, maybe going to my freshman year of high school, we had summer workout programs, and they were relatively pretty good. And we had sets. We had like 4 or 5 sets of 6 power cleans, and you were in a group of 3. Okay, so your rest interval was while the other 2 people were going, and I was with 2 guys who were maybe equipped to work at a little faster pace than I was. And I vomited projectile, mainly water and stomach acid. No real solid food that could have been salvaged. And we were literally in the boiler room of our high school just training on rubber mats. And I did it. I was ashamed that I did it. Our strength coach walked in, and this was on set 4. And he flipped the mat over, puke side down now, and said, "You've got 2 more sets." And
Still your motherfucking set.
And he was like, "Take the weight down to whatever you need. I just want you to finish." And it was, I was probably doing like, at the time, after the weight was saying 40 kilos, and I felt like absolute hell. But from then on, I always knew like, that was the last time I ever threw up training, I think. Unless I was like hungover or something, those don't count. Okay, so listen up, you shit turds. When you see me out in public, when you see me at a CrossFit event, when you're a vendor and I'm trying to spend money with you, do not accuse me of hating people getting healthy. You can accuse me of some other things.
Like using the word shit turd on
turd.
a podcast.
Any closing comments from the peanut gallery?
Just remember, CrossFit's a sport just like anything. So people are going to train for it. People are going to want to make a living out of it. And like Dan said, there's nothing wrong with, trying to get fit. It's preventative healthcare.
For sure. Dan German, any words of wisdom?
No, not that I can really think of.
Brian, anything from behind the camera?
I really just want Jess stone cold these 2 kill clips.
You want me to?
As his last intro.
No.
Quite a bit of a mess.
All right, then I got
We're
more
out.
ideas in the future.
See you
That's
next
fine.
time.
We're all shut down. It's fine. Let's just hear it quietly.